Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Good Deeds No Investing podcast. I am your fired up co-host today, Chris Seveney, along with our co-host, Jamie Bateman. And today we got a special guest. We're bringing on Dominic Silvestri, who's a attorney and note investor out of Michigan. And Dominic, how are you today?
I'm doing well, guys. Thank you.
And Dominic, just for full disclosure, Dominic sent us an email on, what was it, Wednesday, I think?
Sounds about right.
Basically thanking us about the podcast and saying, you just completed his first note deal and stuff like that. So we're like, okay, let's have you on the podcast. And it was kind of like, all of a sudden, I think he was like, what?
You had a little more notice than Stephen Berkey did, which was 5 minutes, but not much.
Yeah. So if you think it's hard to get on our podcast, it's not.
Yeah, no, I was a little shocked, guys. I'm not gonna lie. I had been listening to you guys for a while, and Chris, on this particular deal, I actually had reached out to you, and like within 5 minutes, you responded. And I was kind of surprised. I'm like, wow, he responded pretty quick, and you gave some good advice, some which I took, some which I didn't, and then. Yeah, I just want to say thank you. You guys put out some great content. I love the format. And yeah, that was really the only point of my email, is just to say thank you.
Yeah. And, and the reason why we like to, just have these open discussions and bring people like Dominic on are because they can share some of their news stories involved. And again, our whole focus on this podcast is really trying to keep it real and really show people that this isn't it's a passive investment where I can throw some money at the wall and just watch it grow. It's not like that. Those little mushroom kits that you can buy that I saw on Facebook the other day, where you put on your table and in 3 days it like grows into this nice big mushroom. Unfortunately, note investing is not like that. But we just had Dominic on today to kind of share his story. And, Jamie and I are locked and loaded to fire some questions at Dominic as well. So, but Dominic, we kind of briefly touched base a little bit about you, but if you want to share a little bit more about yourself, go ahead.
Oh, sure. Originally started out as a civil engineer. I enjoyed construction and real estate. Did that for a number of years, and just kind of found my project management skills were mainly focused on negotiating contracts with contractors, and that kind of led me to law school. And it happened right around the time when the market kind of was crashing when I graduated law school. So I had a lot of acquaintances and contacts in the construction business that I was able to kind of start helping out. At the time the market was going downhill and contractors weren't getting paid. So, that was kind of my foray into the legal aspect of a little bit deeper real estate stuff. And then, I started my own practice in 2008. And just kind of been going on since then. I have represented other investors who have been purchasing notes. And I don't know why it took me this long, but last year I had a case up in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, which I don't know if you guys know anything about. It's about a 6 or 7 hour drive from like the Metro Detroit area where I'm from. And one of my foreclosure note investor clients called me with a question while I was in the car, and it just hit me. I thought, why am I not investing in notes? I'd done some fix and flips, some rentals, and I just thought, why not? And as I'm on this 6 hour drive, I just kind of zipped through some podcasts and stumbled across your guys' podcasts with, Chris, you and Gail at the time. And you guys kept me company for about a 6 hour drive there and a 6 hour drive back. And I was just kind of blown away at the amount of information. I realized, even though I'd been involved with, real estate and mortgages and foreclosures, working on short sales and loan modifications for borrowers, I really didn't know a whole lot about the note investing world. That's sort of my backstory.
In full disclosure, when you first reached out to me and mentioned, I'm a lawyer, this and that, and you're in the Detroit area and I want to get involved in note investing, and I kind of looked you up and stuff, I was intimidated a little bit because I was like, wait a second, this guy looks like he's like assisted borrowers in the past, and now I'm like, is this guy like one of my borrowers' attorneys or something? I'm like, at first I was like, I was like thinking, wait a second, because I'm always like, hypersensitive, certain things like that. I'm like, thinking, okay, what's this guy? First I'm thinking, what's this guy's motive? And then, you join the Facebook group and start typing, and like, oh, okay, he's cool, But at first, it was interesting because I'm like, again, I like to do diligence on people. So I'm just, attorney reaching out, do note investing. I'm like, most attorneys don't want to deal with note investing and stuff. So now I'm reading a little bit about profile. I'm like, you know, kind of caught me off guard a little bit, but
Oh, yeah,
and kudos for being a civil. So.
Oh, thanks. It's funny because Chris, you always talk about like communication from the lender side. And, in 2008, the firm I was working for, as a result of the economy, they had to shut the doors. So literally I had 2 weeks to pack up some files and go find a new job. I had a brand new son at the time. He wasn't even a year old. And so I thought, you know what, I'm going to try hanging out my shingle. And one of my first clients, this big burly truck driver guy, he explained how he had lost his job and, he's basically trying to make ends meet. He's on a third of the income that he was before. And his mortgage company is threatening foreclosure. And he's like, can you help me? And I really didn't know anything about working out, foreclosure alternatives at the time. And I thought, you know what, let's try it. I want to help this guy. I mean, this guy, he must have been 300 pounds, all muscle, and he's sobbing like a baby here. And we were able to work out a pretty good deal. And in that case, the lender was very communicative with us. And I thought, wow, if I can do this for borrowers, why can't I do this for lenders? And so that's really something that, in my day-to-day job, if I'm representing one side or the other, just keep the dialogue going, keep the communication open. It's frustrating when you have a lender that just won't return phone calls for months, at a time, or, emails or anything. And I guess that's what I like hearing from your perspective.
Yeah, and that's actually a kind of an interesting note and bolt, because I know people, and I sometimes fall into this category as well, where borrowers will call you and it's like, I can't deal with it today or whatnot. And meanwhile, it might be in legal or something, along those lines. And, give them the courtesy, because again, especially if you start legal, because you're in the process of potentially taking their property. And, I'm sure they're not sleeping at night. I'm sure it's a very stressful situation. Give them the courtesy to, call them back, whether you can work something out or not. Just don't leave people in an unknown. I don't know if anyone's ever gone to the doctor and kind of waited for some type of test result, and it could be something that's not very positive. The waiting's the hardest part, in any situation. So it's Dominic, with a little note and bolt there starting off.
Oh. No, that's a good analogy about the doctor, because at the end, this guy was grateful. He was grateful, to not only me, but also the bank for, being understanding of his situation and working something out with him. So, when you can have a win-win like that, it's kind of a good feeling.
I was going to say, I think one of the hardest parts of the note investing business is trying to figure out which borrowers are, being honest and you should try to work with, and which ones you shouldn't. I don't know if anyone's ever, we should do a podcast episode on that, Chris, but that's really hard to navigate. And I would assume that your experience is really helpful in that regard. So how much over the years, what percentage of your work has been on the borrower side versus the lender side?
When the economy was struggling, from 2008, 2009, all the way through to 2013, 14, I'd say probably 50 to 70% was probably borrower focused. As that changed and, the economy picked up and home values increased, especially our Detroit market, that seems to be a hotbed right now for investors all over, all over the world, really. I have clients from China, Australia, New Zealand that wanted to get in on the Detroit market. And it's still a pretty hot market right now. But now it's probably 90% investor, lender sided transactions.
No, I just hadn't really even thought about that as far as, seeking out a particular attorney to help me, whether they've got experience on both sides of the fence per se. So that's pretty interesting.
Yeah. I also do some collection law, and the stories that you hear from some people, you can kind of start weeding out who's legitimate, who's actually being honest and upfront with you, and who's just trying to pull the fleece over you.
Dominic saying the word Detroit is like my rant button, because I have two cases right now in Detroit that just are completely, let's just say one of them is I continue to get fined by the city of Detroit for having a rental property where it's a recorded land contract. So I have a hearing next week on that one. Because the interesting thing though is every time you call the city, they're like, oh, you need to talk to the supervisor. I'm like, okay. And they're like, well, they're not here. And then they finally give me the inspector's name, and the inspector finally is like, oh, you need to talk to the supervisor. So now I've, just got my attorney handling that one. The other one that's interesting is I did a forfeiture last February on a deal, and then the 90-day, redemption rights came back and stuff, and then we filed for eviction in like September or whatnot. And then the borrower's attorney showed up at court, filed a verbal motion to dismiss and overturn the forfeiture. Didn't provide a reason, didn't provide documentation, and the judge approved it.
Wow.
So,
It's Detroit is its own unique animal, and yeah.
And now they're asking for, well, we want to see the pay history for the last year, and it's like, well, we took the property back. There's no pay history. We aborted the loan because typically after you get a judgment, and it's very rare that a judgment gets overturned for somebody just saying, "Can I have this overturned?" So, sorry, I went off on tangent. Let's talk about your note deal. Can you give us a little bit of insight on this deal?
Yeah, I'll be honest. It took me almost an entire year to get to that point. I love your phrase that you use, the analysis or paralysis by analysis. Is that what?
Yeah.
Am I saying it right? Yeah, that was me. Also, with the fact that I'm like, you should know this stuff. How come you don't know it? It made me a little bit more cautious. I spent most of 2020 kind of just dry running it, looking for deals, and finally I found one. It was a second non-performing. And I decided to place a bid. It was not a huge one. It was relatively small.
So where did you find it? Was it through the course of your day job or no?
No, paper stack actually.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. That was, at first I didn't quite believe that paper stack was even legitimate. And then as I started diving a little bit more into it, they actually have a very nice platform. It's impressive what they've done there.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, the due diligence part was really the part that really made me nervous, but I also felt very comfortable doing it because I had, kind of started doing it for some of my clients. Only my clients would bring me in after they had experienced a problem, and I'm looking at it and I'm like, why didn't you pick up this? Why didn't somebody pick up this? And yeah, so I was trying to really go over it with a fine-tooth comb. And the due diligence period that I spent 2 weeks doing, Chris pretty much analyzed in 5 minutes, if that. So it's pretty obvious that when you've been doing this a while, you reach a certain comfort level, like Chris has. It was a second, and part of my due diligence, I realized that there was enough equity in the property that I could get paid on the second and pay off the first. Also realized that whoever was holding the note didn't realize that the borrower had actually passed away a few months earlier. And when I contacted a realtor in the area to kind of do a drive-by for me, she actually knew the borrower and was surprised to hear that the borrower had passed away. And she's like, "Oh my God, I know the family." And it was kind of weird how things kind of played out. And she's like, I'm really glad you're doing this, to clean up the neighborhood. And it seemed like a pretty cool city in Idaho, of all places. I never would have guessed, that's where I would have bought my first note, but so
interesting.
It happened.
So I'm curious because we don't, the second space is obviously a little bit more niche within this whole niche space. So I guess you haven't bought a first before, but how did you approach that? Maybe can you draw out anything that might be beneficial for the listeners as far as, how do you approach that from a due diligence standpoint? How do you view the first? How do you place more emphasis on typically people say with seconds, you're looking at the borrower more than the property. Sounds like you did a thorough job on both sides of that, but anything you can draw out that might be helpful for our listeners who aren't familiar with seconds at all?
So the two areas that I really focused on as part of like my purchase offer that I had made was I wanted to see a credit report for the borrower if they had run one, and luckily they had done one, and that gave me at least somewhat idea as to what the current balance was on the first, at least within a few months and a few $1,000s. And then really the valuation, that was the part that I kind of maybe focused on a little bit too much. But I wanted to make sure when I'll be honest, when I shot it over to Chris said, I wouldn't touch this. I don't think there's enough meat on the bones. You're going to be tight. And I kind of responded and said, well, do you think I could go back and ask for a reduction in price? He's like, yeah, absolutely. Why wouldn't you? And I don't know why I didn't think of that on my own, but I guess that's kind of the newbie thing is, you're not quite sure what you can do or what you can get away with. So yeah, that's what I did. I went back and renegotiated the price and had a few factors lined up to back up my reasoning, not just, well, I want to make more money. I don't think the seller would have appreciated it like that. Luckily, the seller had already started the foreclosure process, so I just kind of ran with it from there.
So that's a good point again that you make there is, a lot of people sometimes are hesitant to go back to people regarding a price, but if you have a legitimate reason that there's something that pops up or you find something or along those lines, and if you can explain it, a seller can at least review it, and whether they accept it or deny it, it gives you, it's not like you're just walking away from a deal or, if they don't do anything, walking away because you just wanted to walk away. It's, hey, I found this, or here's a concern, or here's a risk factor I wasn't aware of. And now kind of, risk, means money. So you need to mitigate your risk and adjust the price. So
yeah, that is a key point too. I mean, I know you and Gail have talked about this a long time ago, Chris, but people backing out of deals just because they couldn't find the money. It's like, well, that's not an okay reason to be bidding on assets and not closing. But if you're finding issues with it, doesn't mean you only have the close or not close. You can also retrade and negotiate. So
yeah, perfect example is, Stephen Berkey, who we had on the podcast a few weeks ago. He bought a note from me. He found something about it and came back and said, hey, here's the thing that is kind of a higher risk. Based on this, I need to fade my bid. And I looked at it and I said, yeah, he's right. So basically I was like, okay, we renegotiated the deal. And if I didn't, I wouldn't have had hard feelings against him. I would have, from that perspective, because again, when I sell assets, I typically am not trying to sell them to pull the wool over someone's eyes. I hope people make money on the assets they buy from me, because guess what? Then they're going to come back and keep buying assets from me.
So Dominic, I was curious how you, I had a deal I talked about on the podcast that I bid on that the borrower had passed away. He had a really good credit score, strong equity position, and this was a first. And, I don't think that it was part of a really big tape. I'm guessing that the seller had no idea that he'd passed away. And it's pretty much a simple Google search, a little bit of open source research allowed me to figure it out. I didn't get that bid. Somebody bought the whole tape, but I'm just curious, how did you find that out? Did you mention that?
Yeah, no, pretty much the same thing. Oh, just an open source search, Google. It's amazing if you dig deep enough, some of the information that you can find.
Mm-hmm.
Jamie, I'll be honest, I was even nervous because I thought, when I finally realized that there was meat on the bone that could be had, I actually emailed the seller, and maybe this is, a little bit naive of me, but I said, why are you selling this? Like,
Mm-hmm.
and he was actually pretty honest, and he was like, it's a little small for me, and I've got a huge pool, I've got JV partners, and I don't want to mess around with a one-off, and quite frankly, I'm a little nervous about the condition of the property that might it might affect my return. And he was straight and honest with me, and he was at least right about the condition. I think that's why he had scheduled the foreclosure sale, but then had just been adjourning it. I think he had adjourned it like once or twice. So when I picked it up, really the only thing I had to do was tell the trustee, okay, go. When we got possession of the property, it needed about $2,500 in clean out. There was a lot of garbage and just cleaning, just so the smell wasn't so bad, according to my agent.
yeah, if anybody takes a property back, assume you're going to have to spend probably 2,500 plus in clean out. You're not going to have a broom swept beautiful house, whether somebody moved out, somebody passed away, whatever the situation is. It's it's not going to be pretty typically.
No, I think
So
my agent said the smell of animal was probably the biggest thing that she was worried about. So yeah, no, she was good. She, I had to pay her a little bit more in commission. That was sort of our arrangement is, rather than me paying the money up front, she said, how about we increase the commission and I'll coordinate the clean out with, a cleaning lady and a trash out company. So it worked out pretty well.
I was going to ask if you could shine some light on more of the specifics as far as if you're comfortable, that is, with the numbers. How much did you pay for it? How much was owed on the second? How much was owed on the first? What was the property value? So that our listeners can kind of put some numbers to this deal.
Okay. I mean, like, yeah, I'll be honest, for my first one, if I broke even and I didn't lose money, I would have been happy just to at least go through the experience.
Sure.
This particular note, I think he started out around 20,000 he wanted for it for the second. I negotiated that down to a little over 12,000, 12,500, I believe.
Nice.
Yeah.
Thank you. And then the property, I had figured the value was somewhere between 85 and 115. I know that's kind of a big range, but I didn't know what condition was like. The second from the credit report was owed about 65. So there was, not a whole lot, but there was some meat there, I guess, especially once I was able.
You mean the first was owed 65?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, the first.
And what was the balance on the second, out of curiosity?
The balance on the second was, I think, 40,000.
So you basically paid 25 cents on the dollar, roughly.
Yeah.
And with some equity, so that's not bad at all.
No, that's why I was a little surprised to hear that the family was letting it go. But if they would have paid off both, I think it would have been tight for them. Eventually, we ended up listing the property for, I think, just under 100,000 based on the condition. So the margins were very tight, and turns out the first was actually owed a little bit less. That there had been some principal paid down, so that was kind of a nice bonus to find out.
Nice surprise. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what did you do? So curious, because again, I don't do seconds, so like I honestly don't know the answer to this question. But so you foreclose, but you still owe the first. Do you start paying them, or you just basically tell them, "Hey, we're selling the property. You'll get money when you get your money," because you can't foreclose in that amount of time, anyways?
Yeah, so a lot of states are first in line type states. And I knew from Michigan that if I foreclosed and took ownership of the property, then I would take it subject to the first mortgage. So either, yes, I would have to start paying on it, or, I'd have to work out something with them. I knew there was a ticking clock because from my estimation, the borrower had passed away at the end of October. So I knew I had a couple of months, and judging by my attempts to correspond with the servicer, it was a large servicing company that I had worked with in the past, and they're just a nightmare. Nobody knows what's going on. Nobody understands. Nobody wants to talk to you. And I think, I'd made quite a few phone calls and saying, hey, look, I want to get you guys paid off. Can I get a payoff statement? And just trying to get that from them was close to impossible. So I knew I had a few months before they would have initiated the foreclosure process. Otherwise, yeah, I would have had to start making that monthly payment instead.
Should have just kept sending them QWRs every 2 weeks just to force them to respond. Then we'll get,
just delay that process. No, I didn't have to do that though.
He might end up having to pay for that though, because
well, that's true. Yeah,
I mean,
get that as a loan.
Yeah.
Good point.
Yeah.
So what did it end up selling for?
Ended up selling for 95,000. So after paying off the first, I think there was about 35,000 left over. But like I said, I had to pay close to 8% in commissions, which covered, sort of like a property management fee as well.
Mm-hmm.
I had to pay off $2,500 for cleaning and trash haul out. I think all in, when I was done, my $12,000 or $13,000 investment returned 22,000. So
nice.
And but this is in 2 months or less, right?
Yeah,
that's pretty incredible.
Yield is off the so here's one of the things so I'm actually going to be speaking at it's interesting you bring this up. So I'm speaking at the Cash Flow Expo, and my whole topic is the true cost of a non-performing loan. And it's a lot of the stuff that you mentioned in there, like realtor coordination, clean out, and all these little ancillary expenses that people just think, oh, I've got $95 a month in servicing, I have my taxes, and I have a foreclosure cost. Everyone forgets about all these other, little ancillary costs. And it sounds like, based off of kind of what you had in realtor commissions and everything else, you probably had what, $10,000-$12,000 in costs, basically.
Yeah, and Jamie, at the end of the day, I'm like, wow, okay, this worked out. This is pretty cool. I might be able to do this. Another month or two, if that property wouldn't have sold, that return would have gotten eaten up real fast. And I kind of had that in the back of my mind. So I kind of had, my little checklist, my system in place to like stay on top of everything. I think my realtor and the title company were getting a little sick of me calling. But yeah, I was getting a little nervous because I knew time was money, and it easily could have exploded and gone the other way for me.
So when you were listing the property, because you knew you had a little bit of meat on the bone, did that impact what you were going to list it for when you were having those conversations with the realtor? Because like you mentioned, I think you mentioned list it for 90 or whatever it was. Sometimes realtors are like, hey, let's list it for 100 or 110 or something. Did you basically, knowing you had some meat on the bone, kind of price it to try and move it quickly?
Yeah, that's a great question, Chris. Initially, her BPO to me had said the property was worth 115 all day, and she said, "Oh, homes in this area are going fast. We're right next to Washington and Oregon. There's a lot of people not happy with what's going on in those states politically, and they're flocking over to the border into Idaho because we're a lot more conservative." And I thought, "Oh, that's a good thing." And when it came down to it, I think her BPO was a bit high. Because when she initially had listed it for, I think, about 100,000, the offers that were coming in weren't close to 100,000. So that told me the condition was probably a little worse than maybe she had led me to believe. But it's not like she said or did anything that was untrue. It's just that's the nature of the market, and I had to adjust with it there. So
Was that the first agent that I would say, used, or did you have to use multiple agents on the property? Because I've had issues where I've had to use multiple agents because sometimes it's not somebody who really specializes in REOs. So I'm just curious if.
that's another good question. So I actually had a lot of trouble finding agents. I know the market is great right now. Agents are busy, but I must have called probably 6 different agents, and only 2 called me back. And she was probably the most prompt, and she was the most communicative with me. The other ones either didn't want to deal with a property that small or that size, or they were just too busy. I don't know the reason, but
Yeah, and for people listening, 3 little tips on that. There's a website, I think it's called NRBA. It's like the National REO Broker Association, that gives like a list of all REO brokers across country. So that's one little tidbit there. I've been using 2 different companies to basically, they're nationwide companies. One is called American Destiny, and the other one is called LRES, LRES. Kind of splitting up. And I know people use, there's a few other companies out there as well. I can't think of their names of right now. Louis Amaya has one. I can't think of his name, who he's got a podcast, and he's heavy into notes. And he's kind of moved over to that kind of side of business as well. So I do find that is very challenging to find agents who are, list REO style properties. And even, Jamie and I had in Maryland, it was a little interesting using, we used Jamie's dad to list, and, it was probably a unique experience for him as well.
Yeah. At first I said, do you want to list this? And he said, not in that condition. But like we've joked before, the attorney and my dad were the only ones who made money on that. But
I actually had one agent return my call. He was the second agent, because initially I had been approaching agents saying, "Hey, I need somebody to do a drive-by, BPO, let me know what you charge." And he flat out said, "No, I don't do that anymore." And I said, I'll pay you up front." And he's like, "No, I've been screwed and burned too many times by investors claiming they're going to pay me and they never do. But when you get the property, let me know and I'll list it for you." I'm thinking, well, okay, you don't want to help me when I really need you, but you want the easy part. And
right.
the other agent was more than willing. She's like, "Oh, absolutely, I'll help you out." And so that's why I really went with her. She was, communicating.
I'm curious, when you were looking on PaperStack and probably other sources, geographically, how did you narrow down your focus?
I primarily wanted to stay in the Midwest, and to be honest, this one popped up, and I don't know how I selected it, because it's probably not on my radar to go anywhere near the West Coast. But the numbers, like I said, seemed to look good, and I started pursuing it. And funny thing is, I ended up buying another second about a week later.
Okay.
That one, I don't know why I'm getting these seconds, but for some reason, the numbers seem to work. And the second, actually, I realized, is now a first. They had also started foreclosure, and I had actually called the attorney, and they were with a large law firm, and they'd said to me, "No, actually, I think there's 3 mortgages on this property. You're number 2. and we had to add number 3 onto the lawsuit. And when I was doing my due diligence, I got my own title report, even though the seller provided it. And I realized somebody didn't have a good report, and mine was actually in the first position. So
wow, where is that one?
that one I'd rather not say, if you don't
Okay,
mind.
sure.
Not yet. I don't want to jinx anything.
No,
but yeah, when
can I JV with you?
It's like
Just kidding.
you don't know when the pendulum's going to swing back the other way. You do a really good deal, and then all of a sudden you're worried that maybe this might be the one that sinks you. I don't
I've
know.
had stuff where people were selling stuff saying it was unsecured, and then I'll look it up and stuff and online and be like, this is like first position loan. Like, am I missing something? Like, as part of I'm like, something just like, I'll look, and then I'll like, kind of do the double flinch and I'll look, and like I had one where they thought it was stripped because it was a second that the borrower filed in bankruptcy. They filed a motion to strip the lien, and it got approved through the bankruptcy court. But what happened was that was in like the first year of the bankruptcy. In the fourth year, the case got dismissed. So they just took the file, threw it in and unsecured, never waited to see what would happen, and then just, basically said, hey, we got this debt, it's unsecured, basically threw it out there. And all of a sudden it's like, I'm looking at it being, saying like, and I went and see the bankruptcy, and I called my attorney. I'm like, wait, I said, if the lien stripped, but they don't finish bankruptcy, it's like it never happened. He's like, exactly. And then in the same token, they had paid off the first later on.
Wow.
Because this was like 7 years ago. So the first was paid off. So now all of a sudden it's something somebody sold as an unsecured loan. Same thing. It's a first position loan. Like, ding.
That's amazing.
Yeah, no, I have a feeling I'm going to have a fight though from whoever owns the second now, because I think it's a significantly larger balance than what mine was. So I'm guessing at some point they thought it was the first. So
was it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, were they recorded around the same time, or was it well after?
No, not even close. So mine was recorded, like, let's say in January, and theirs was recorded in July. So like there's a 7-month difference, but my guess is that I'm not sure. I think one may have been used to discharge an old mortgage, and then I think mine was like a home equity line, and it was used to discharge the old mortgage, and then they did a refinance with the larger one later.
Well, what they probably did is a refinance, and they were supposed to pay you off, or the title company screwed up, so it's more of probably
possibly.
So you never know. You might, all of a sudden they might come back and cut you a check because the title company may have screwed up from that perspective.
I'm hoping, knock on wood, I guess. The minute I got that title report, I immediately told the seller, okay, I'll take it. I'll take it. Like, I couldn't get it locked in quick enough at that point.
Where'd you find that one? Out of curiosity.
Paper Stack as well.
So
yeah.
Nice. So, and I don't know if people are seeing a common theme with Dominic, but Dominic's getting started. And again, I don't get paid anything from Brett and Paper Stack. I mean, we do some Clubhouse and other things together, but I've got no, paid affiliation with him. But I buy stuff on Paper Stack, and people are like, oh, Paper Stack's like, kind of the loop net for notes where things go to die. No, you can find deals on there. I mean, you got to bid if you think something's overpriced, but you like the asset, still bid. You that $20,000 asset you got for what, 12.5? So that's a big haircut, but there's still assets on there that you can acquire. So people getting started out, instead of spending 10 hours a day calling banks, wasting your time, you're better off analyzing deals on Paper Stack, figuring out which ones may work and putting bids in.
Absolutely.
Get a lot more experience that way too.
So Dominic, I'm curious, do you have a kind of a plan going forward? Are you going to stick with seconds, or are you going to, what's your portfolio going to look like in 2 years?
Technically, he's got a first and a second.
Well, yeah, it's true. Are you going to stick with seconds that are actually firsts?
Right now, I'd love to say I do have a plan. I've been listening to your guys' podcast about scaling the business, and I'll be honest, the first time I thought about that, I thought there's no way that's a big endeavor. But who knows what's going to happen? Right now, I love what I do. I love my day job, and I don't want to leave that. So if I could do a couple of deals a year, somehow figure out a way to pay for college for my kid, I think I'll do that.
I think that's hitting on a really key point. In the podcast episode that just came out yesterday with Eric Smith, he's dabbled in, he's a commercial real estate broker in California and makes good money with his day job. And I think he dabbled in a bunch of different parts of notes, and he's bought partials from Chris and me. And I think he's ultimately kind of figured out that he really likes being passive. So point being, not everybody needs to scale. I think there are some real challenges that come along with scaling, obviously, but one of them is the fact that you're not able to very easily pay as much attention to each deal like you were able to calling 6 realtors, on the first one. And I'm sure you put in a good amount of time on each of your 2 deals. So I just don't think there's anything wrong with that at all, with not scaling. So I think that's a, healthy way to approach it. What's that?
Big expense to scale.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I can't imagine. I guess my metrics for whether or not the deal was going to be successful or not is I kind of kept track of my time, just like I do in my regular job. And I'm like, okay, if I had a client paying me, would I have made the same, or am I spending more time and not being compensated? At the end of the day, it's really all we have is our time. And, family is very important to me, spending time. My son plays baseball and basketball, and I like to be part of that. I like to coach and, be flexible and have the time to be there. I also like to pay bills too. So that's kind of.
Yeah. And I also think, we touched on it earlier. You said, I actually don't think you really suffered too much paralysis by analysis, just from an outside perspective. I mean, that's not that long to be not taking action, in my opinion. Everybody's got to figure that out for themselves. I've dealt with recently had some calls with investors that have no idea kind of which, even do I want to do short-term rentals? Do I want to do buy and hold? Do I want to do notes? But they're ready to bid on assets. And I'm like, okay, take a step back, let's figure out what you want to do first. And then on the flip side, people have been paying for seminars and researching for 4 or 5 years and not bought a note. So, somewhere in between is the happy medium, I think. But also I want to mention for the listeners that you obviously have experience that's relevant. So you're not coming into this entirely uninformed, like some note investors are. So seems like you're playing to your strengths, if you will.
Yeah, I think it also helped. Even buying like a rental property, a few years ago, it helped me to understand, okay, I've got to get insurance, I've got to make sure this is being done. And if there's a water leak, I have to get a plumber. I had one rental house that it was notorious. Whenever I would leave on vacation, I'd get a call from the tenant saying there's a water leak. It seemed like every year it was like clockwork. And I think that kind of helped at least prepare me that, okay, I'm not the landlord anymore, but some of the obligations still carry over. Trying to remember, Chris, you had it's an older podcast, Deepta, I think her name was.
Yeah.
She talked about this, and she was kind of a little spitfire. I actually liked that podcast a lot. She said, go out and own a rental property, manage it, do a fix and flip. I know not everybody can do that, but I can see where she was kind of saying, there's some benefit in actually getting your hands dirty and learning the process that way.
Yeah, she calls it like it is.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I'm actually thinking about having some people I mentor going forward just watch the show Hoarders and basically be like, this is your property. This is your house. It may look beautiful on the outside. Here is the inside of your house. So be prepared for it. Because sometimes that first time, it's very difficult to prepare for what it's going to look like. And nowadays, like I saw Dan Deppen posted a picture of, not safe for looking at, or if you've eaten lately of a property, and I looked at it, I'm like, yep, just like every other property I got, it's kind of, but somebody for the first time seeing that would probably, spill their beans. Basically.
Yeah, I had a rental where we went to go look, and my handyman had come with me. And this is the first time I'd ever heard that people would actually do something like this. He said, well, hopefully, because we couldn't get a camera down like a vent stack. And he said, well, hopefully they didn't. Yeah, I'd never heard of that. And he said, oh yeah, when people get pissed off, they pour concrete down the toilet, and it just completely screws up your sewer system. I don't know. That kind of disturbed me a little bit.
Yeah, it's one thing to be negligent, but it's another to be vindictive, I guess. Curious, looking back, I know you haven't been buying notes for very long, but we've asked this question before, but Is there anything that's comes to mind as far as having been easier than you expected, or anything that was more challenging? Any big surprises, not particular to your deals, but just in general with buying notes? Anything that surprised you?
I don't know about surprising. It has been difficult to find things outside of paper stack. It seems like the more I try to reach out for other sources, just so I can keep the options open, there's a lot of brokers out there, and there's a lot of, and maybe I'm too overly cautious. There's a lot of like just not very good deals from my perspective. So I think for me right now, the biggest obstacle is trying to find a good source, to
Mm-hmm.
keep, looking for deals.
It's a challenge for all of us.
So
Yeah.
I'll say it because I will. Yes, there's a lot of shady brokers out there, to say the least. And yes, a lot of the deals that we've been seeing come out lately through some of these larger brokers and stuff have just been, I mean, I look at them and I just laugh. I'm like, okay, yes, let's bid off of payoff, and we're going to pay 90% of the total payoff on this loan in New York. And I'm like, okay, crackhead. No, and it's a fund actually out of Pacific Northwest, who I had a call with like the president or somebody high up there, and they were under a different name at this time. And I bid on a pool of assets that had, let's just say, a UPB of like 1.2 million. I was at like, I was right around like 550 on the entire pool. And he came back and said, how about you pay 550 cash, and then we'll loan you $400,000 because we want 950 for this pool. And I'm like,
What?
he's like, well,
Wow.
he's like, the property values are over like 2 million. And I said, yeah. So he goes, well, if you have a note for 50,000, the house is worth 150, you're going to make a quick 100,000 because you're going to get the property. I'm like, no, I can get what the payoff is, which is 50,000. He goes, well, no, you'll foreclose. No one's going to bid at auction. And I said, well, if it's worth 150 in a hot real estate market, people will bid at auction unless it's not worth 50,000. I'm like, he's trying to convince me, and I'm like, dude, like, are you trying to like sell me like a car with no tires and no steering wheel or something? I mean, just so shady. And that's a lot of stuff. It's from the same company now that's sending out all these larger tapes of, I see like 100 assets or 150 assets. And again, they're asking for like 85% of payoff or UPB. And it's like, whoever buys these is going to get completely crushed. So,
That's crazy.
I stopped going to the foreclosure auctions only because I think the last couple that I went to pre-COVID, of course, you're in a room, it's a huge room, and there's a ton of people, and you're packed in there like sardines, shoulder to shoulder, and the bidding. Yeah, I mean, if you have a hot property in a hot market, like pretty close to what we're in now, even if it's not a hot property,
mhm.
you have a low balance. That thing's gonna go. Yeah, it's frustrating sometimes because I would see properties that I knew needed work, but people, even other investors, are bidding them up to like fair market value as if they were fixed up right now. They're that desperate for property.
I
Mm-hmm.
got one last night. So a property, and someone sent me a property in Annapolis, Maryland. It was a condo that basically somebody sent me. It's like, oh yeah, it's off market, 189,000. They send me inside pictures, and the place like a 900 square foot condo. It needs everything. I go on, I pull up some comps, brand new, a unit that had been completely renovated, to the T, in that same complex, just sold for 185. Literally, like it closed like 3 weeks ago. I reached back out and I said, "Why are you asking 189 when this one sold for just 185?" He's like, "Oh, that one, that's not a good comp." Like, it's the same condo comp. I'm like, show me a good comp then, that we can use. So yeah, it's crazy market right now. Yeah, as we wrap up this episode, kind of Jamie just touched upon, but what would be some advice you would give to somebody else who's kind of like in your shoes or a little bit, kind of just right behind where you are on your path to note investing? If there's something that a lesson learned, or as we say in Note and Bullet, what would be some pearls of wisdom you would provide somebody?
I think probably don't be afraid to ask the questions. Don't be afraid to tell someone that you're a new investor. I did with this first deal. I said, look, I'm a new investor. appreciate you working with me here. I'm going to ask you a lot of questions. And, the seller was actually great. He said, go ahead, and answered all my questions. He seemed fairly truthful. And, even still, like, I reached out to attorneys in that state because, I don't want to pretend like I know everything. Clearly I don't, but yeah, no, I was asking questions that that would probably seem rather general. But I had a couple of attorneys that were awesome. And I even offered, I'm like, hey, let me pay you for your time. You spent a half an hour on the phone with me, and these guys were great. They're like, no, give me a good review on Google. That'll be my thank you. And it worked out pretty well. It's just, I think, being a new investor can be very intimidating, and you don't want people to, it's kind of like being back in school where you're the new kid and you don't want everybody to know you're the new kid. You know what, embrace it. It's going to be uncomfortable, but I think that's where you're going to see the most growth, is when you do embrace that and you go through those uncomfortable situations.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally couldn't agree more with that. I mean, it's everybody, there are plenty of areas that more about than those people you were asking questions to, right? So, I mean, there's nobody that knows everything. So who cares if you're new at something? Like, that's the only way to learn, is to ask questions. So I love that.
Yeah, that's one thing that kind of drives me nuts a little bit. Like, I'll go on, say, like a meetup group, and someone says, hey, can you just, talk about note investing for 45 minutes? And it's, it's a note investing meetup group. I'll go on there, and I'm trying to like spur a conversation with people, and everyone's just like, like church mice. It's basically nobody's saying anything. I'm trying, and I'm like, people, ask questions. You've got my time. Take advantage of it. Granted, I can sit here and talk a dog off a meat wagon because I love to talk. But, if you have a question, there's no such thing as a stupid question. Ask. If you send me an email, what's the worst I can say? I don't respond, or maybe like Dominic sent me an email and I responded within 5 minutes and, gave him bad advice, which he didn't. 100% profit in 2 months. So there you go. So just do whatever I say. Do the opposite.
Do the opposite.
And then, see.
I don't know about that. It's funny, in CrossFit, we have a saying, embrace the suck. And so in the back of my mind, I got to tell myself, just, you're going to be uncomfortable. Just embrace it. Go through that process.
Yeah, that's really good advice.
So Jamie, any final words of wisdom on your side?
This has been great. Yeah, nothing genius over here.
Yeah, same with me from that perspective. So Dominic, want to thank you for coming on today. If people want to reach out to you, what's the best way for them to reach out to you?
Oh, thanks for having me. I'm pretty searchable through Google. I'm in the Facebook group as well. It's probably the best way if you want to, message me directly. I'd be happy to. If anybody has questions, please don't be afraid to ask.
Cool. Well, thank you everyone for joining us on this episode of the Good Deeds Note Investing podcast. Make sure to leave us a review on iTunes, Stitcher, all those listening sites. And as always, we recommend you go out and do some good deeds. Thank you, everyone.